incredibly busy this time of year, making time for us out here in Sacramento. From ESPN NBA Front Office Insider, Bobby Marks. Bobby, it's Dave and Jason. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are we doing?
Doing great.
Not great.
Yeah.
Well, sun came up, right? We live another day.
Bobby, I want to ask you, we're going to focus on, your expertise is you've been in front offices.
Mm-hmm.
You understand money better than anyone and how it works. But I just want to ask you what might be an unfair question, but you have a broader view. We're on the floor. You're at 50,000 feet. I am incredibly worried about the reputation of the Sacramento Kings as a franchise, ownership, front office, and how this looks to other agents of both coaches, of players. And please feel free to push back on me, am I over dramatizing by thinking that the reputation of this franchise is at or near the bottom in the league for other agents and teams?
No, listen, there's certainly a track record. What happened with Mike, and listen, I've been part of a lot of firings, and we fired Byron Scott after going to the NBA Finals, 2 years in a row when we were 500. But we did it in a respectful manner. I understand Sacramento going in a different direction, especially how the team had been playing. I do think that raises a red flag as far as how the process. If it's not Mike, and it's going to be maybe somebody else, 2 or 3 years from now. So I think that's probably one of the worst processes that I've seen a team go through as far as the manner of how that happened. And I think, listen, anytime you have a player like De'Aaron who didn't commit this past summer, and certainly, the tea leaves are signaling that he won't commit this summer. That's why we're hearing his name in trade rumors. That is certainly a concern. It's certainly a concern. It's similar to kind of what Brooklyn is going through and will go through when you have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, and none of the 3 players want to be there anymore. That's a concern as far as how you get, how you build your roster and how you hire your next coach and how you operate here, because, that's, DeMar DeRozan, DeMar's comments, yesterday, should put the organization a little bit on alert too, because is he the next to go? If De'Aaron gets traded, I'm certainly, DeMar DeRozan doesn't want to go through a rebuild here. So I get it. I've been in front office. I know how difficult it is as far as what they're trying to do. But it is, once kind of you let go of the rope a little bit, things kind of, you're basically back to where you were, 10 years ago here, and you're trying to put, the days of 2 years ago are long gone, and now you're trying to kind of build back your reputation.
And just a quick follow-up, Bobby, because, again, we're on the floor here. You've seen the front office, been a part of the front office. Is it normal? Well, I know it's not normal, but Monty McNair never spoke. Vivek Ranadive never spoke. There was no team official that ever spoke, and it left De'Aaron and others to handle the PR, if you will. Is that something that ever happened? You fired coaches, but didn't you guys always speak to it?
Yeah, always. I worked for Rod Thorne for 10 years. We always, Rod's, he's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. He always addressed why we went in a different direction and what was next. And, he went through the process. I worked for Billy King for 5 years. We let go of, I think, multiple coaches. It was always, it never lingered, right? It never lingered. Listen, Rod went to bat when, I guess it was when Byron got fired. There was, rumors that we had Jason Kidd wanted him fired, or Kenya wanted, Rod went to bat for those guys, man. He was like, nope, my decision. This is an internal decision. I just kind of felt we needed to go in a different direction. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I once the decision was made, it was kind of crickets here. And fortunately, they got fortunate because they played some of their better basketball, right? Kind of the situation went away. But now with the situation with De'Aaron and everything, somebody's gonna, one of the grown-ups in the room is gonna have to address, the fans and the media here.
Talking with Bobby Marks. Bobby, I have a two-parter here, and I guess this goes to the financials of all this, and that's why you could speak on it much better than Dave or I could speculate. So De'Aaron didn't sign the extension. We understand why. Look, he's eligible for Supermax if he made All-NBA this year. Is he also eligible for All-NBA next year as well if he's still a Sacramento King after this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of continues carrying with you. So if he doesn't earn All-NBA this year, he'll be eligible this summer. I think it's $4 for $229 is the extension that he can sign with. If he says to the front office, "Hey, I think I can get more money if I earn all," if we continue doing this process, let me play out the contract, and he earned All-NBA in 2025-26, yes, he would be eligible for the Supermax as a free agent. I think there's only one player that's done that. I think Curry did that, and I think he might have been the first guy to do that, but that was certainly under different circumstances. I don't see a situation where De'Aaron Fox is playing out the contract and unless you really hold him to his word and you hold Rich Paul to his word, saying that he's going to commit as a free agent because he can earn more money, he can get more years left. I think that is a high risk, allowing a player on the last year of his contract to play it out.
Okay, and then a second part, I guess, would be what is there a financial benefit to De'Aaron, Clutch Sports, that whole group, for him being traded now, let's say before the deadline, as opposed to the offseason?
Yeah, about a $10 million incentive, because if he's traded now, for example, let's say if he goes to San Antonio, they'll have cap flexibility. They can renegotiate his contract in the offseason. What that means is that his $37 million salary, they can increase it to roughly $47 million and then extend off that. If he's traded in the offseason, he wouldn't be renegotiation eligible until I think January-ish. By that time, you probably won't have that flexibility to do it. So yeah, there is an added incentive as far as for him to get traded right now, just from that renegotiation standpoint.
And let's talk a little bit about, you'll hear people say, I don't care what his preferred destination is. We'll trade him for whatever we want to get. Again, I'm going to lean on your front office experience here. Rich Paul is arguably, I think he is the most powerful agent in the NBA, certainly up there. How much really can an agency affect where somebody goes, in the sense of, I would imagine if I'll just throw Milwaukee offers a deal, sure. they take it there, and then Rich Paul says he's 100% not signing an extension. So Rich Paul has a lot of say in this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think you can do it in a respectful way. There's one thing from Jimmy Butler saying, I don't want to go to Memphis, right? Like then hey, it's similar to the same situation in Sacramento. He's still got after this year, still got a year left. He's going to play out the contract, and then he's going to become a free agent, and he's going to look at his options. And I think if your teams, are you willing to give up? What of draft compensation and players are you willing to go up? I'm just going back to my situation in New Jersey. Listen, it was a long time ago, but we traded for Darren Williams, and he had a year and a half. It's similar to what's going on with De'Aaron right now. He had a year and a half left on his contract, and we traded 2 first-round picks and a couple players, and there was no guarantee that Darren was going to re-sign with us. And we wound up building a better roster around him, and that eventually convinced him. And it came down to us in Dallas. It wasn't easy. So that's the gamble teams, let's say outside of San Antonio, will have to make. If the player's not willing to commit, how do we feel the following summer as far as signing him long term? What else can we do here? I think if you're Sacramento, what you want to do is do what we did in Brooklyn with Carmelo Anthony. You want to get into a bidding war where you're upping the price and having a team like San Antonio basically give you as much as they can, and think there's other teams out there. We did that in New York with Carmelo Anthony was available, and we basically drove the price up because New York wound up giving up more than they probably should have. So that's probably the ultimate goal. If the goal is at the end of the day to if he's going to be moved by next Thursday.
Talk with Bobby Marks, ESPN front office insider, former front office member. So, Bobby, look, Dave and I always try to play amateur GM, and this is what I do. How about this trade? Look, this isn't your situation, but you look at it. If this is you, are you in the camp of, hey, maybe we be aggressive at the deadline, add pieces, try to keep Fox, or is it, look, this is a player that can fetch us a pretty good return? Just curious. I mean, what would you look at doing here if you were in these shoes?
Yeah, I think you have to weigh it two ways. I think you're definitely taking offers as what's been reported here. I think you're stacking them up on your whiteboard, and you're deciding, can we get a better offer in the off season? I always think you can, because I always think history has shown teams are reactionary based off how they do in the postseason. Teams are willing to give up a little bit more in the offseason, as far as maybe in-season trades are extremely, extremely hard to do, because, you're basically dealing with a little bit different rules. I think there's more flexibility in the offseason here. So I don't think if you're Sacramento, I don't think you're operating on a deadline that this guy's got to be traded and we're going to take the best offer. I think you're basically telling, let's say if you're talking with San Antonio, you're saying, this is what we want. Listen, I've said on TV, if I was Sacramento, I'd want Stephon Castle. That's their prize. That's their prize rookie. I'd want. They've got a ton of draft picks. They've got players here. This is kind of what I want. And if they're not going to do it, then fine. Okay, let's move on to the next team. What are they willing to do? And you basically just keep a file of these offers. And if there's nothing that makes sense, you go into the off season, and Darren, you guys know. I mean, he's not going to just sit out the rest of the year here. He's going to continue playing, and then you kind of revisit it again here. But it is an interesting situation, because I think from probably the Clutch side and from Darren, this was probably something that we wanted to visit in the summer, not in late January, early February.
Bobby Marks joining us. I'm smiling here, Bobby, because this is fascinating to me. You spent a long time in a front office, and I know technology may have changed a little bit, but you ain't that old. The things are pretty much the same.
I have less hair.
I just help me walk through the insides of this thing. For example, is there a group text that all GM where Bobby, you'd say, let's put you in Monty, we'll put the vest on you for Monty McNair, where you say, all right, stores open on Fox. And then if I were to call you, and again, you're in the Monty McNair spot, is it just simply ring, ring? Hey, it's Bobby. And I say, hey, Bob, I want to talk about De'Aaron. I'm thinking X and Y player and X and Y pick. What are your thoughts? I mean,
like that? I wouldn't say there's a group text among all 30, but listen, I just go back to my time, in New Jersey and Brooklyn. We all were kind of divided amongst how many, I had 10 teams, Billy had 10 teams, Frank Zana had 10 teams, and we would basically kind of get a feel around the league, and you basically would share notes. So if whether if it's Wes or if it's Monty, and if I'm in New Jersey, Brooklyn, and I'm calling and I say, hey, are you guys thinking of doing something with Darren at the trade deadline? And they say, yeah, we're thinking of it. What are you thinking? Right. And then that basically gets the conversation going, and could be, hey, oh no, that's a little bit too rich as far as what we're doing. This is what we would do. And hey, circle back to us if you get something better, and maybe we can build it up a little bit here. And then it kind of gets into, all right, now we got to get a third team or a fourth team, and it gets a little bit more complicated there. But that's basically the starting point. And I think if you're San Antonio and they're talking with them and say, hey, this is what we'll do Keldon Johnson, I'm just hypothetical, Trey Jones and Bree first. And I think we could wait until the offseason, and maybe something better could come out. And so that's a lot of the back channeling as far as that. And then you take the agent perspective in here, certainly from Rich Paul's perspective, you can, cursory, I would say, back channel calls with, whether it be a team that he wants to go to, and say, hey, Sacramento's looking for this, and Rich might say, do it. This is, you're gonna lose the guy to another team if you don't do this trade. And it's a fascinating thing, because the offseason is so much different, because there's no deadline. There's no 3 or noon deadline for the trade deadline here and everything, where you have a little bit more more of a window to do things.
Bobby, how about I'm sure this has probably happened to you in your past. So a player you may have had like of Fox's ability, that's a, borderline all-star, top 30 player in the league, a proven player that in his prime, that hears his name, that has given you publicly a preferred destination. And let's say they do go down the road and like, it just doesn't match. They don't do a trade. They get to, there's still a second half of a season to go. There's still a team that's trying to make a playoffs. You got some other guys going, hey, what's going on here? I came here to play with De'Aaron. How do you handle the player management of the rest of the roster and or De'Aaron if you don't trade him?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm worried about I don't know if I'm worried about losing De'Aaron if he's not traded by the deadline. You guys know him a lot better than I do. Just from what I've seen, I'm not the rest of the roster. That's certainly you've got to. The last thing you want is chaos around. The positive is that by Thursday afternoon, this is all going to be over, and then we revisit in the off season here and everything. We went through it with Jason Kidd in 2008. I know it's a long time ago, and Jason wanted to get traded to Dallas, but he gave us two other teams. He said, "Hey, Clips and the Lakers too. Like if something works out, that would be great. Also, just because those teams." At least the Lakers were, a championship-worthy team. And it basically kind of goes, as I said, it kind of goes all the way back to if he does get traded, the comfort level of that team, him willing to resign with that team or, how much, as I said, how much that team is willing to go back. So I'm not concerned that you're going to lose this group if there's no deal at the deadline here. I think certainly you're going to need some closure when you get into the offseason. This is not something that will, you get to training camp and De'Aaron Fox is on the last year of his contract. That would be certainly reckless there.
Is there a point as we wrap up with Bobby Marks? And I want to follow up on this. Again, it's so fascinating to get somebody who's been there, but also understands media. Is there a point where a GM on a deadline situation, if you're talking to multiple teams, will do all right, last call, like
yeah. Oh yeah. I think you have to. Listen. I think you have to. As I said, because you are working on a deadline. Like we did it with Carmelo, but that was like 3 weeks before the deadline. We said, "Yeah, we're out." We weren't really out. We just said it publicly. But yeah, I do think because then you have to kind of move on to some other things. Certainly, if you're, I don't know. Trying to think, Brooklyn, for example, and they had interest in De'Aaron Fox. No, we're going to move on to something else because we can use our picks to do something, a different deal. So I do think there's got to be some type of artificial deadline, whether it be Wednesday night, because at least it gives you some more time, a lead up until Thursday afternoon.
And then, sorry, Jason, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say one last one for me, at least, just a gut reaction, Bobby. You've been. What do you think? You think it's. There's plenty of teams interested. You think this does happen before the deadline? I
don't. I don't. I think, anything can happen in this league. I don't. I think he's on the roster at 12:01 on Thursday here because I get it. Like people could say like, well, he's going to be on an expiring contract. He's not going to be his value. He's going to be. I don't believe that. I think what his value is right now is going to be where his value. Of course, there's the injury part of it also. That you do have to weigh here. But I do think I just have that gut feeling that he will be on the roster. It certainly could change, but I think you have to, as I said, like you only get for Sacramento's front office, you only get so many swings at this, right? Like if you're trading a player, like a top 30 player, man, you better make it right. You better make it right as far as what you're getting back, as far as draft picks and players that can help you. You don't want to be where, no offense, you don't want to be where Washington is right now. Like you don't want to, you guys have been through that. You don't want to do that. How do you do like a soft I call it retool, where you're kind of like in between, where it at least gives you a foundation where Oklahoma City was. Oklahoma City traded Paul George, but you still got Shea back, and that kind of gave you a building block to kind of put together a really good team.
Last thing for me and Bobby, can't tell you how much we appreciate your time. Where does you're in such a unique position in the landscape, Bobby, because you have the institutional front office knowledge. You also work in media now, and I am always fascinated. I have a lot of love and respect for your colleague Shams, our good friend Sam Amick, Woj, of course, before he left.
Sure.
Where does we sit here in Sacramento, and it's a pipe dream to think that us or our competitors at the paper and another radio station. We're not breaking the trades. We know it's going to be Shams. We know. Where does the media come in the negotiations and the PR from a front office standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when I started this, 10 years ago, my central goal was try to give it, like I don't want to be a lobbyist, right? Like my goal is not to be a lobbyist and basically put on a happy face if Sacramento makes a trade and say, wow, this is terrific. Like my goal, at least for me, is to give it the perspective of both sides and kind of try to hit down the middle and not be a hot takes guy here. So yeah, I think, certainly, I worked with Woj for forever and everything like that. I mean, the goal is to put news out there. The goal is not to, play sides and everything like that. And Shams is, and Sam is terrific, and Shams is also terrific, and they're well versed and they're well connected here. I think they do a really good job. I think if you lean and you kind of show favoritism to a team, I think that's a disservice to kind of what we're trying to do here.
Wonderful segment, Bobby. We know how busy you are. We'll let you get out of here. Thank you so much for always coming on with us. You clear up a lot of stuff and give us stuff to think about. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and save some of that hair for the trade deadline, dude. Okay?
No, it ain't good. Hey, as I told Perk, I love Perk, and Perk's thrown out. Hey, can we get Darren to Denver, right? And I said, Perk, come on, man. Like, you got a better chance of me growing hair than what Denver can offer in a De'Aaron Fox trade here. So the hair ain't growing back. It gets off my head every 3 days and everything.
Keep fighting the good fight, my friend. Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that is Bobby. That was fantastic.
Terrific.
That's honest to God, fantastic to get that kind of insight. I hope you enjoyed that. That will be available on YouTube as well if you missed it.